well met. I am your humble narrator Amanda, here with tales of daring do and daring don't in the hopes of amusing, entertaining, and perhaps even educating. And all I ask in return is that you stay a while and listen. So it's story time. Oh, before I get into story time, lighting it's different today. I'm trying a different setup. I don't know if it works or not. Let me know. Anywho, I want to share a story that I had forgotten until I went back through my notes. People, never throw out your gaming notes. Ever. The crap you will forget is incredible, and then the crap you'll find is amazing. So, this was, I think it was about the second, maybe third game I ever played as a player, as opposed to a GM. And to this day, it's probably my favorite campaign ever because it was so simple, but at the same time, it threw so many curveballs. The setup was very basic and very standard. There's a rand of rampaging goblins. They have kidnapped townsfolk and the daughter of the local lord. Go forth and rescue her. And if you get the townsfolk too, that's nice. Very basic, very standard. Started in the traditional way, which is we were a group of roaming adventurers who had fallen into each other's company and for some reason, despite hating one another, hadn't fallen out of that company. Go figure. And we were approached by the local lord's representative and basically told, here is the adventure. Do it or we'll have you arrested. Hey, no pressure. So we had our party, and our party was very, very basic. I mean, I think we had 2 fighters, we had a magic user, we had a cleric. 4 characters. But what was different about this particular one was we were on horseback. That's right, we actually rode horses. This was 2nd edition AD&D, and it was definitely more flexible than 1st edition. Let's put it that way. And it was more fun, but it was also far more convoluted. So you had I want to travel along this road. Okay, roll the dice to see how far you manage to travel in that day. If you fumble, which is quite likely if you're me, you fall off your horse and injure yourself, or your horse throws a shoe, or your horse gets bitten by a snake, or or if you get a critical, something happens, you get an exceptionally long distance out of your travel. Very basic AD&D stuff. What wasn't so basic was we were going after a band of what turned out to be over 100 goblins. 100. We were 4 level 1 characters. 4. This is not good. The best example of why this is not good is our magic user. Our magic user was a level 1 wizard. Yay. Which means he got 1 spell. And seeing as we were all inexperienced, of course the spell he went for was Magic Missile. Magic Missile does 1d4 damage. And you can use it once a day. 1d4 damage. What's even worse is magic users, wizards at that point, I think still to this day, by the way, I found that it's 5th edition that AD&D is up to. I need to get the source book because I need to see what's changed. But anyway, you had 1d4 health and this guy rolled a 2. So in other words, a stiff breeze could kill him. And he had roughly the same strength in attack power as a stiff breeze. Now, I will say this. GM was smart. Really smart. He decided right off the bat, okay, it's stupid that magic users only have access to these weapons. That unless you have, say, a religious aversion to a weapon, you'll use whatever you can. So he allowed the wizard. I can't remember who played the wizard. It certainly wasn't me. I was playing the cleric, but he did say that the wizard could use a saber. We were on horseback, and a cavalry saber made sense. It made sense for the magic user to never get off his horse, ever, because at least that way he was really mobile. The religious reason for not using weapons was clerics in... I was playing a cleric of... oh crap, what was her name? Basically, she was a goddess of bountiful harvests. And she didn't allow me to shed blood. Didn't mean I couldn't pound bones to dust. So I was using basically a warhammer. You know, great. But I was still only doing, I think, 1d6 damage, which isn't a lot. And I had 1d6 health, which, as far as I can remember, I had like 5 health points. Isn't a lot. If you think about it this way, the magic user with his 1d4 magic missile could potentially bring me down to having 1 health point. Level 1 and 100 goblins, people. Level 1 and 100 goblins. So we set out, and along the way there were a couple of really bad mishaps. We had a horse that actually did throw a shoe. What was ridiculous was the shoe flew up and hit the fighter in the face. Because that happens. Shoe flings up into the air, whacks the fighter in the face. Fighter takes 2 health points of damage, which of course, being a cleric, I have to heal. I do, but I'm not happy about it. I did have a healing spell. I also had Turn Undead, which is about as much use as, well, I don't know, sawdust in a fire. You know, it just... I'm going after goblins, not undead. Woo, I can turn undead. Turning undead, by the way, is literally what it sounds like. You see an undead, you cast Turn Undead. If you're successful, the undead will actually turn away. Weaker undead, if you're a powerful cleric, might actually just explode. But basically, you're talking about turning them away from you for a certain amount of time, and then they can turn back. It's not a great power unless you're going up against undead, which we weren't. So the GM had come up with this really great storyline where we were going to be looking for a particular individual who would help us to find the goblins' hideout. And I should point out that goblins in this setting, they don't like sunlight, but it doesn't hurt them. They just don't like it. So they come out in daytime. They come out at night. They have advantages at nighttime because they can see in the dark. They have really good night vision. But we were trying to find this one particular guy, and he was a farmer. His wife had been taken, and he had followed her. And followed the band, knowing that someday he might be able to find someone to help him to get her back. That was us. So we eventually find him, which is an adventure in itself. It involved, amongst other things, fishing for a magical fish, which could tell us the direction we needed to go in. Honestly, magic. We're Irish, okay? Irish myth is full of magical fish. Don't ask me why. And I'm not just talking about the salmon of knowledge. So we had to catch this magical fish, which was interesting. We had to... The magical fish pointed us in the direction of his farm. He wasn't there when we got there. But a farmhand was still there and alive, but unconscious. So, my being the cleric, I had to roll a knowledge check. And I rolled the knowledge check, and I passed, and I went, oh, we need a particular herb to bring him back from his coma. Yes, shades of Lords of the Ring. So the rest of the party go running off trying to find this herb, which they eventually do, and they bring it back, and I make this healing draft that just has to be rubbed across this guy's lips, and it'll bring him back out of his coma. It does. Turns out the hand had been injured. He saw the farmer going off north, due north, after this roving band of orcs. It's at this point that the GM goes, everyone, roll a perception check. Okay, here's the thing. You should ask the GM to roll, if it's applicable for me to roll perception. A lot of the times you should just say, I'm rolling a perception check. What do I see that's out of the ordinary? Bear in mind, we didn't have a ranger. Guess what? There's tracks leading due north. We could have just looked for them. Admittedly, we wouldn't have got the experience points for bringing this particular guy out of his coma, which was good because, well, I dinged and went level 2. The magic user didn't. very close to but didn't. One fighter went level 2, and the other fighter almost did. So great, we're doing more damage now. Life is pretty good. Life is pretty sweet. So we're back on the horses. We make sure the farmhand has food and water for a few days. We tell him, we will return. We do, eventually. North. We travel north and eventually catch up to the farmer who at this point is stumbling along the path that has been basically trampled into the ground. If you can imagine the damage that 100 people, even very small, light people, running over the same ground in a row, like maybe 4 or 5 abreast, it tears up the ground a bit. Not a huge amount, but it's certainly going to trample down grass, and it's going to... Well, also goblins aren't exactly environmentalists, so there's like bushes hacked down for fun. They leave a trail of destruction. It's really quite amusing that we couldn't find it to begin with. Always roll a perception check. We find the farmer, and it's... Ho, farmer! We hear that your wife was taken and you are going north in pursuit. We have been sent by the local lord, whose name I cannot remember and isn't in my notes, to find the goblin horde, eradicate them, and bring back the townsfolk, including your wife and the lord's daughter. Your farmhand is unwell and you should turn back and take care of him. We will return. And we did, eventually. So he turned around and we had to do a persuasion check to persuade him that, you know, being an unarmed dude following 100 goblins was a bad idea. So, persuasion check passes. We get some experience points. Magic user dings. Second fighter dings. I'm almost 3rd level. Life is good. So, we're traveling along and we have our first combat encounter. There's a small group of goblins that have fallen behind the main troop. It's like 4 of them, 5 of them, and it was a test to see if we could get the combat system down before major things happened. And we did. It went reasonably well. It turns out that a magic user with even very basic skill with a saber on horseback who has 1 magic missile, well, 1 magic missile takes out 1 goblin. Boom! Crit. Goblin. Gone. Great. Magic user is charging through the battle. Every time he goes past it, it's vroom! And there's damage to a goblin. Sometimes, never fatal, but enough. And it's a distraction. It means the goblins are splitting their attention. They're having to turn back to back, which reduces the number that the 3 of us have to deal with face to face. We're charging them down. The goblins never even get a hit in. Not even close. Well, kind of not even close. The closest they got was one of them fired. He had a short bow. He fired and an arrow stuck into the shield of one of the fighters. Goblins are dead. Ding, 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 ding. Everyone levels up and I get a new skill. I get a new power. I get a new gift from the goddess. I get Detect Alignment. In AD&D, there's a thing called alignments. There are 9 alignments. Some of them player characters cannot be, which are things like chaotic evil. Chaotic evil, a good example of chaotic evil would be the Joker. You don't want to be in a party with the Joker. Have you seen what he does to his own men? Lawful good would be Captain America. And there's like everything between lawful good and chaotic evil. So you have like neutral, you have, hang on. Chaotic evil, neutral evil, lawful evil. You have neutral good, neutral evil, neutral, true neutral. Then you have chaotic good, neutral good, and lawful good. I think I have that right. I don't really play AD&D anymore, so it's kind of gone out of my head. And detect alignment is useful because you cast detect alignment and you can find out what a person is. Now the thing about it is, in the monster manual for 2nd edition AD&D, and I'm pretty sure every version since, all goblins are chaotic evil. They are chaos. And they are evil. And they have no real allegiance to anyone or anything other than the strongest goblin, who they will always work to undermine. Great. This becomes important. So we defeat them, we get a little bit of loot, a little bit of gold. That's really about all we get. Their weapons are crap, although we do pick up the short bow. It might be useful, who knows. And we travel into the north, ever northward. And eventually we find the Goblin's cave. Now, outside of the cave, there are obviously a couple of picket guards. We have this really fun piece of the adventure where the two fighters are trying to be thieves and stealth up on the goblins. And they succeed, mostly. There's a little bit of noise, which does draw out a couple of goblins, but they then don't notice anything because it's daytime and goblin eyes aren't great in the daytime. They can operate in daylight, but they're not great in daylight, so they don't notice the fighters. We get away with it. Life is good. And it's at this point we go, actually, these guys are pretty easy to kill. I reckon we could take on 100 goblins, minus the 7 or 8 that we've killed at this stage. And everyone's like, yes, we can do this. We can do this. We can take these goblins. And then it occurs to us that the first time we fought goblins, we were all on horseback. So we were charging through the goblins, wheeling and charging through them again. It's not like the goblins had much of a chance of fighting back. In this situation, we're going to be going into a cave. We ain't going to be able to take our horses. Delicious cherry cola. So, what do? We walk in. Well, we creep in very, very carefully. And we're lucky we're able to pass multiple stealth checks. We don't fail any of them. I do know the GM was taking it really easy on us. He embodied something I want to talk about in the future, which is that story is king. But we'll get to that in the future. And it was all about giving us a good adventure. So we go into this cave and we're sneaking past goblins. We slit the throats of some that we can't get past. And we get to the main chamber. It's a passageway that goes into this larger cave. And there's really nothing else to this cave. It has one way in. And then it has this large chamber. There's cracks in the ceiling that allow smoke from fires to escape. That's their home. And we can see that the townspeople are moving around. There's not many of them. There's about 6 or 7 of them. They're moving around. They're serving the goblins to a degree. Some of them are sitting with goblins. They look worried and nervous. They obviously can't speak the goblin tongue, but they're trying. They're trying not to get killed. And we see the Lord's daughter, who is held close to the goblin chief. So we did the smart thing. And we went, okay. We all want to roll a perception check. We all want to see if there's something that we, with our particular personality type and perspective on the world, notice about this encampment that isn't immediately obvious. 2 of us pass, which is pretty good actually for a perception check, especially at low level. And the first one to pass is fighter number 1. And fighter number 1, whose name I can't remember. I don't have notes for the names of any of these characters, not even my own, which is freaking crazy. But we're basically, one fighter passes and he's told, you notice that none of the townsfolk have any kind of chains on them or hobbles or anything to stop them escaping. That's number 1. Number 2. The second person that passed was me. The GM turns to me and goes, you feel like you should cast, that you look down to the throng and something is going off at the back of your head, that there's something more going on here, something that only you can perceive. This may be a message from your goddess. So seeing the fact that I have been given check alignment and given no choice in it, if I'd been given a choice I would have taken another healing spell, I cast check alignment. there isn't a single evil entity in the entire cave. Not one. The closest thing to evil is neutral, and everyone down there is somewhere between neutral and chaotic good. And we all turned to the GM and we just went, dude, what the fuck? And he's sitting there with this huge shit-eating grin on his face. So I'm like, alright, screw this noise. And I turn to the party, I'm going down there. You can come with me, or you can stay here. I don't give a crap which. I want to find out why these goblins aren't evil. So we stand up, I stand up, and I start walking down. The other party members are going like, well, fuck. And they stand up and follow. This is one of the very few occasions where I actually kind of just take over in a game. I usually follow along because I usually GM. So when I play, I like to just relax and enjoy it from the perspective of a player, which is a very different way to play. And this was very different because I actually just like, I was just, at this point I had GM'd I think like 3 longish games, like 4 or 5 sessions each, and I was starting to get a feel for being a GM, and that one of the most important things you can do as a GM is not be predictable. And I decided, okay, we're not going to be predictable, so we just walk down. And I walk down, I have my hands like this, well away from my weapons. It's like, look, man, come, mean you no harm. And we're walking down, and the Lord's daughter stands up and goes, don't draw your weapons, they're not evil. And I'm like, no shit, they're not evil. Cleric, check alignment. Which I really shouldn't have said, because it's actually more of an innate ability. It doesn't necessarily have a name in the world. It's complex. So it's like, yeah, no shit. What the frack is going on? Here's what's going on. It turns out the Lord, and this is, by the way, why this became a 10-session game. This was the first session. The Lord was actually after turning into a vampire. The townsfolk ran. The local goblins were followers of my god. They were farmers. They were raiders as well. But what they raided were actually other goblins, mostly orcs, which are much larger and nastier. And got evil aligned ones. They were at war with one particular tribe of orcs. And it turns out that at some point in the centuries before, this particular tribe of goblins, and this was only a part of this particular tribe, this was like not even a tenth of their total number, had been visited by a cleric, and the cleric had converted one or two of them before he died over to my goddess. And over time, that entire tribe converted, and the ones that didn't convert were pushed out of the tribe, who eventually went on to join these orcs, who, of course, good goblins, this does not pass. The good goblins had a cleric. They had a goblin cleric who had been given a message from the goddess that this town needed aid. The people of the town were endangered by their own lord. As my followers, you must do what is good and rescue them. Farmhand? The farmer had been out in the fields, had no idea. The farmhand had banged his head running after them, thinking that they were being kidnapped. He slipped and banged his head on a stone. They made sure he wasn't going to die. The cleric in this particular group made sure he wasn't going to die and then rejoined. We had killed 8 good people. Can I point out what that does? It shifts your alignment. Not good. It ended up that I had to do a check every day to confirm that I could still use my powers through my connection to my goddess. Every day. Because I had accidentally killed good creatures. Yeah. And if you want the real kicker, the best part, the Lord's daughter had fallen in love with the chieftain of the goblins. Apparently he did this really wonderful thing because he could do this really wonderful thing. Because guess what? He had a forked tongue. And I'm going to leave that to your imagination. It was nuts. It was crazy. We eventually joined forces with the goblins. If you're interested in the rest of the story, let me know. I'll tell you the rest of the actual adventure. But what made this absolutely amazing was that we got our one and only magical weapon from the goblins at the end of the first session. The only magical weapon we got the entire game. In AD&D, actually in most fantasy settings, there's a way that you have like a +1 enchantment, a +2 enchantment, a +3 enchantment, and that makes a weapon magical. It does increase damage. It may occasionally have a secondary effect, like say a sword that's a +1 sword that happens to have a permanent enchantment of cast light on it. So you draw your sword and it's an instant torch. Things like that. We got unsurprisingly, a +1 holy spear. It was a spear that had a holy enchantment, which, well, basically it was designed to kill undead. Remember I said I had turn undead? It became important. And that's what made this particular game so good, was we only ever got one magical weapon. We never had the ability to brute force our way through the adventure. Because there were 4 of us, we had started at level 1. By the end of the total adventure, we were level 5. Which isn't very high level. So we had to think our way through most encounters and most of the problems that we faced. It wasn't as simple as, oh, we bash it over the head and it dies. We couldn't do that. We actually couldn't do it. We had to improvise. We had to think. We had to do things like later in the adventure, we had to come up with a way to create essentially a bomb in a world that doesn't have science. So we had to figure out a way that we could come up with that was non-scientific to have a bomb. It was so good because it was a really good example of the story is king. The story is all that matters. And it was a great story. I'm not doing this adventure even close to the justice it deserves. But the end of the first session was actually meant to be the end of the adventure. We were actually supposed to kill the goblins and rescue the Lord's daughter, but Kieran, the GM, decided, no, this is too much fun. We're actually really enjoying this. I'm throwing the rest of the module out the airlock. It's gone. I'm winging it from here because this is going to be really good. And it was really, really good. And as I said, it was a great example of the story trumps everything else. He wanted us to experience a really great adventure and to feel like we had had a really great adventure. And let me tell you, by the 10th session, we had a really great adventure. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back again next week with another opportunity for you to stay a while and listen. In the meantime, have a great week, be good, and bye for now.